So here, this is just, I feel real important that we understand our receivers, our athletes as learners. It's not one size fit all. You can't teach the senior, the All-American senior, the same way you teach the freshman walking through the hallways for the first time. So this is just fits in Posner stage of motor learning, breaks down how guys learn, how people learn, and how it varies really. So the first stage is that cognitive stage. This is the minute they walk on the field, they walk in that hallway, and they're gathering information, how you talk, how you present, what you're demoing, how their teammates are running through drills, how they're getting in and out of breaks. It's really what to do and how to do it. So during this stage, since they're beginners, they're learners, a lot of inefficiency, a lot of errors. I feel it's super important and really beneficial to these kids that we don't overload them with a ton of feedback, a ton of cues, a ton of stimulus. Kind of let them explore. Human beings are made to move. We're extremely adaptive. Very, 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 very minimal cues, and let them just kind of explore and see how it's done. Really only jump in if you see some type of biomechanical issue where injury is at risk here. This is the stage where they are going to learn very rapidly. It'll be similar to that light bulb clicking, that analogy of the light bulb goes on, and then they kind of just get it, and it sticks. And then we refer to it as subconscious incompetence. So they're doing it wrong, and they don't even know what they're doing wrong at first. Then they advance into that associative stage where they're able to, the light bulb went off, they're able to perform these skills with a little bit more consistency. They're a little bit more consciously incompetent, meaning they know what they're doing wrong and they're working to fix it, and they begin to refine their skill set. And then this final stage is that autonomous stage, which we're all trying to work to, where there is no thinking, everything is habitual, everything is quote unquote second nature, and we're subconsciously competent. We don't have to think about what we're doing to do it properly. So here's a little bit about the mindset and how we teach it. Big, we, not me, okay? It's not about me. It's not about how many stats I have. It's not about, you hear about when receivers block, it shows how much they care about their teammates, and I think that falls under this umbrella. I like to use it as, we don't have single stats, we have group stats. So for the season, if we have 3 1,000-yard receivers, well, then we got over 3,000 yards as a group. If we got 30 touchdowns, if we got 3 guys with 10 touchdowns, then we have 30 touchdowns as a group. And I think that's super important. It builds that brotherhood. Guys hold each other accountable, and it really just picks up the receiver room. The second one is competitive arrogance. So Steve Smith is one of my favorite players. I had a coach that played for Carolina for a few years, and he would just tell stories about how hard this guy would practice. And it kind of made sense when you watch him play that, if you're just looking on a narrow lens, it looks like he's a little cocky, he's a little conceited. But to me, that's just his competitive arrogance. He outworked everybody every single day. So he knew when he lined up across from somebody that they couldn't check him, they couldn't hold him, they couldn't run with him, because he had earned that. He had earned the right to know that he was better than whoever was going to line up in front of him. And that starts in practice. And then that dog mentality, which you hear a lot now, but what it is not is, it's not making a play and standing over somebody and beating your chest. That doesn't take skill. You'll see that in rec centers. That does not take any skill. It does not make you a dog. A dog is when, you catch a slant, you get popped, you hop back up. Next play, you're the outside zone away from you, you're climbing to the safety and you're cutting them off. And then the third play, you're going up top. That's a dog. When the corner you're lined up against is like, I don't want to cover this guy, coach. Get him. I can't cover him. Put somebody else on him. Every play, you never let up. That's that dog mentality. So you're going to hear me mention a bunch throughout this presentation, no indicators. What we mean by that is leading up to our break point, okay? And we're going to discuss the break point briefly in a minute. There's no change in height. Now, naturally, we are going to change our height gradually as we accelerate and we transfer into max velocity on routes with a longer vertical stem. But this change in height cannot be abrupt. I can't be down and up and down and up, okay? No change in stride. So as we're approaching our break point, we're not chopping up our strides. Everything stays fluent. We're keeping that vertical threat. And then our eye discipline, super important. And this is kind of the last part of this. the last part that you want to coach up. Just where are their eyes? Be cognizant of where your eyes are. A lot of guys will just be staring at the ground when they're running a route. They'll be staring at their break point. Pick them up. And I don't remember which coach said it. Might have been Coach Dub or D-Rob, but look a man in his eyes before you kill him. You know, stare right through him all the way through your break point. And then everything's a vertical too. It's not, if we freeze your route up until your break point, we should have no idea what you're running. We hit play. Okay, I understand now. So the first route we're going to talk about are 90s. These are primarily our digs and some square outs, although most outs are either speed cut, or, you know, you give a little juice at the top. So we're going to discuss how we break these 90s down. So we take a part whole approach to every route. We always finish with the full route, and we'll discuss why in a little bit. So we start with the snap downs. We'll advance to top 90s, box 90s, full 90s. We have video clips of each. So here's our snap down drill. So what we're working here is that first step of our deceleration. It's our first step that says, I'm starting my break. This is where we start our break point. It's a violent snap down. I pull myself into my break. This is our main deceleration right here. This is what starts our body from moving fast, stopping, and driving out of our break. So a couple things we're looking for here is our hips are going to sync with this snap down. My nose is going to get over my toe. There is one caveat with this, okay? So Charlie Francis, great legendary sprint coach, said, watch the players, not the game. So while over in Italy, I was fortunate enough to watch a ton of NFL film and kind of see how these guys move. Now, the caveat is that for me to expect this kid here to get in the same body positions as Julio Jones is damn near criminally negligent. But there are some parameters that we'd like to hit. And those parameters are, as I mentioned previously, we want to sync with the snap down, let it pull us into our break point. We want to snap our nose over our toes a little bit, and we'd like our arms to mirror our legs. And you're going to see that's probably the most difficult that guys have, because their arms begin to flail. But once again, we'll talk about that later on in the presentation. So we're just going to watch some of these guys snap down. My nose is over my toe. My arms stay tight to my body. This is this kid's first session here. He still does a nice job. He could clean his arm up a little bit tighter. But it's really that false acceleration, that snap down. Some guys call it a trigger step. It's really starting our break point. And you can't see, but on the other side here, we have them snapping down with their right foot, and then they'll get a ball coming out. And we'll vary the ball. It'll be straight on. It'll be over the shoulder, similar to pat and go. It definitely varies. So here's an example of that snap down here. This is Calvin Ridley. And Coach G and I were talking before. I don't know if anybody in here is from Alabama, but I don't really know what they put in the water at Alabama, the University of Alabama. But every receiver that comes out of there, when they put their foot in the ground, it feels like the whole world stops. I mean, it is the most violent thing, and they're damn good at it. You know, Ridley, Julio, Coop, Judy, Ruggs, the kid Waddle, I mean, it is wild. And we're going to see Ridley right now work that snap down into his 90. Here it comes. He's about to start his snap. Nose over, hip sync, arms tight to his body. And you're going to see him drive out of this in 2 more steps. So it's snap 1, 2, finish. And I didn't cut this out. Oh, sorry, it's about to open. I didn't cut this this out because this is a receiver PowerPoint, and it's a really nice route, but it has nothing to do with the 90. Here's Ridley up top. He just runs a stutter and go. I just didn't have it in me to cut it out of the PowerPoint, the presentation. So moving on. So we worked the first step that starts our break point. We're moving on to our last step of our break point. We call these top 90s. We'll also do them with the 45 breaks, but these are called top 90s. We're saying we already snapped down, okay? I already snapped here. Now I chopped with my other foot, and now I'm setting up. I'm driving out of my break with my third. So it's snap, 1, 2, okay? And we're going to see it here. So super important with this stuff is that we limit any type of change in height. Now, is it gonna happen a little bit? Sure, but it's really difficult to put force into the ground this way to go this way while I'm going this way. It's too many different force vectors. Okay, we want to just drive and push the ground away here to drive out here, as limited upper body movement as far as height as we can get. Okay, that's going to create the most efficient break. And as far as the drill setup goes, we have 4 of these set up. So there's one here, 5 yards over. There's another one set up. They're just getting the ball out of the last one because we don't have enough people to throw 4 drills. But they're getting a ton of reps. And here's another drill of it. Now, another coaching point on this drill, and really any 90-degree break. So it's super, super important that we get this foot to clear this foot. And what I mean by that is we want this to strike in front of this foot. The reason being, and you'll see this kid here, he kind of gets a little bit of width, which is going to happen. You know, there's some hip mobility things going on. Not everybody's structured the same. You know, everybody's hip inserts in their socket differently. Everybody's femur is not the same length. So there's going to be differences. Not everybody's going to look the same. And I think that's super important for us to understand. But there is one parameter that we need to hit, and that is that our feet are not even, okay? The minute that these feet get even, he can't clear this hip to drive out of his break, okay? He can't get this open and then push off this way because they're even. What's going to happen is he's either going to take an extra 2 steps or he's going to have to round this thing out. And you're going to see some of it today, but the guys have done a much better job of it. And I'm going to let this play so you see what I mean. This is a little bit too close for me. We'd like to get that foot a little bit more in front and moving a little bit more vertical. A little bit more vertical displacement, a little less horizontal displacement. And then one last thing about this drill. Big coaching point. We want to think about pushing the ground away. I'm not just picking my foot up and putting it down. This is what's driving me out into my route. This is we're applying force into the ground to push out of the route. And then here he is again, where you see he gets a little bit more vertical displacement, still a little wide though. Next progression of the 90s is our box 90s. Now, another very important thing is that we hammer down that these cones are landmarks, okay? There are no cones on the field. It's just structure of a drill. So why that's important is I don't want this receiver right here to approach this cone and have to chop his stride up to meet the needs of the cone, okay? Changing stride is one of our indicators. We want to eliminate that. There should be no change in stride up until our break. So you'll see this receiver here, he does a really nice job kind of disregarding the cones. And older guys have an easier time doing this in comparison to young guys. Young guys, and that's why I try to stay away from cone stuff with the younger guys, but sometimes it's necessary. But for this drill, we're really just working our entire foot cadence. So we worked our snap down. The first step of our deceleration of our break pulls us down into it. We worked our last point, our departure, our drive, our top 90. Now we're putting it all together. So we should really be working our foot cadence of snap 1, 2. We'll discuss the caveat to that in a minute. Snap 1, 2. Snap 1, 2. Snap 1, 2. Trying to get them a ball at all times. Here's Cole. Snap 1, 2. Snap 1, 2. Snap 1, 2. Now you'll notice here, I have to bring this up. Kind of pulls his head a little early. Ball's hitting his hands. We want to stare this thing in the whole tuck, and he kind of loses it. So I think it's super important that we maintain our fundamentals even when it's not something we're working. They're always on, okay? I like the analogy, there's a string from my nose to the football. Wherever the ball goes, my head and eyes go. So if the ball's to my left, my eyes got to go that way. The ball's to my right, my eyes got to go that way. And there's a really great example of an older receiver who does a really nice job of it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So here's an example of that caveat I was referring to, when there will be times where we get out in 4 rather than 3, and it really just becomes where does that trigger step or that snap down start? So rather than chopping their stride to meet the needs of snapping down on our right, so we could get out in right, left, right, or 3 steps, snap 1, 2, it's really just whatever foot you snap down on. So he's going to end up snapping down on his left here. He gets out in 4, but 3 to 4 is our golden rule. We want to be able to get out of stuff in 3 to 4 steps. One is not really better than the other. It's really just determined by what foot am I snapping down on? Where is my foot striking the ground in relation to my route depth? Okay. And you'll see it here. He's going to snap left, and then it'll be 1, 2, 3, but he does a nice job driving out, and it stays smooth. Same rep here. Foot strikes differently, okay? Everybody's strides are different. So now he's striking with his right. He's going to get out in 3. It's going to be a snap 1, 2, right, left, right, and he's going to drive out. And Cole had a hard time. He has a hard time getting his nose over his toe a little bit. And we're going to see that, I believe, within the next 2 clips. But here he does a nice job, and he gets out really smooth. He's able to drive out. And here's one more rep of the box 90, snap 1, 2, we're out. Really nice job looking it into the tuck. So we will never do cone drills without finishing with the full route. I think it's super important that we take what we did and we immediately apply it. The kids kind of get a sense of importance for what you're doing in the drill work, and B, you're able to get immediate feedback on if your drills are working, what you need to work on within your drill. Now I understand that when you're an individual in season and in camp, you don't have as much time to run full routes and do drills. So this is just your routes on air. This would just be like your routes on air, period. Okay. So now we got our full 90s, our full digs. And this kid's a sophomore in high school, does a really nice job with his foot cadence, snaps down 1, 2, drives out. But we're going to discuss his upper body mechanics briefly. Now you'll see he kind of rises, okay? Abrupt change of height indicator. Now this is super, super specific. This is not to say it's a bad route. It's just to say that we can get better. And his arms are flailing a little bit. So when we say change in stride, well, every stride we take, our arms are moving with our legs. So change in stride does not just talk about the legs. It talks about the arms as well. They are connected. They move together. If you don't believe me, try to run without your arms. We want to keep these a little bit tighter. However, he does a very nice job with this snap down. He's super violent. His hips sink. His nose is over, and he's driving off of this leg. He's pushing force into the ground, pushing away to drive him into his route. Does a very nice job. Could get that chin to shoulder a little bit quicker. So here's the same guy we spoke about before. He sits back a little bit into his routes. His nose doesn't get over very much. Still does a nice job getting in and out of breaks, which is really exciting because we're really going to be able to clean him up and get him a lot better. He pays high attention to detail, and he's real fun to work with. So I'm really excited about him. But you'll see exactly what I'm talking about right now. He's going to snap right now off his left, which is going to cause a snap 1, 2, 3 or a 4-step break, which is completely fine. But his arms die, and I'm going to discuss why you see a lot of guys' arms dying right now. So we spoke about why his nose can get over a little bit more. It'll help him drive out. You'll see him round out a little bit. But similar to the motor learning and the skill acquisition we discussed, I'm a big advocate of not overloading guys with cues. If I give this young man 6 cues, he's not going to retain 3. He's not going to retain 2. He's probably going to retain 0. Okay. You're going to overload him, and he's not going to be able to pick up on anything. So right now we have the luxury of having time. Okay. So we've really just been hammering foot cadence. Now, when this becomes autonomous, okay, and he could do this in his sleep. It becomes second nature. He's mastered his craft. Then we could start giving a new cue. And that's when we'll start really cleaning up the arms. But if I start cueing this and then he comes back and does this, if I start cueing this, he's going to go back with his foot cadence, and that might go right out the window. Because the more cues you give, the less retention there is. And I think that's super important. Now, I also understand that, you know, this being in the private sector a little bit and being in March, there's a lot more time. So when you're in camp, you kind of have to pick what am I going to cue on this kid, or what is going to make this kid the best route runner. You don't really want to give him 4 or 5 different cues. It's going to be hard for him to even pick up one of them. And here's what we were speaking about. He could get his nose over a little more to eliminate the rounding of this route. But he does a nice job pushing force into the ground and pushing himself out. But he does round, as we spoke about. So another part of the 90s. Now, I have no problem with guys entering their break and then kind of rotating out of their snap down. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. So Justin, excellent job getting out of his break here. Problem is, indicator, leaning before the snap down, leaning, okay? We want to remain completely square with the two-way go, no indicator, everything vertical until we initiate that break or that snap down. Once that break or snap down gets initiated, it is now a race. I'm racing the DB to the catch point. From break point to catch point, it is a race. Really good podcast, USA Football. Keenan Bailey, I think he's the assistant receivers coach for Ohio State. Excellent stuff. Really great coach. Goes in depth on that. It is a race. So as long as we enter square, I don't have a problem with setting up my break point, my drive, to drive me out of my route. Okay, you can rotate it slightly out of the snap down. However, here we just kind of lean in a little early, but he does a great job getting out. Freshman in high school, really good job. Just want to speak about a little bit too much lateral movement, okay? This should just be vertical, snap, break. He kind of moves lateral a little bit of wasted movement, but does a nice job getting out in a 4-step break, snap 1, 2, 3, 4. Really nice job pulling flat. Same concept here. Could clean up the arms a little bit, but we've really been focusing on the foot cadence. And then last full 90, does a nice job snapping down. Could pull a little bit more flat. So we're going to move on to 45s. Coach D, if there were any questions on the 90s, please share them before I advance.
We're good right now, Coach.
Thank you. All right, top 45s. So similar with the 90s. We're going to work that snap down. We're going to work the top 45. 45s referring to curls, comebacks, and we'll see some other routes that we'll also use the break on. Tight drops to weight to top 45. It should say tight drops to top 45s. I apologize. Long drop to top 45s, and then full 45s. I apologize about this error. So similar, same thing. Snap downs. The way we enter this break is no different than the way we would enter a 90. Okay. I put this in here because I want you guys to take a look at. You'll notice this guy right here. He kind of chops his stride before his snap down. If he's doing it on the cones, he's going to be doing it in the route. So that's something to be cognizant of, and we clean that up before moving forward. So here's an example of this. This is more of a stop than it is a curl comeback, but it's a really good example of the snap foot cadence that we want to use on the curl comeback. The only difference is here, less of a drive back to the ball, more of a passiveness at the top. Snap. And here comes the 1-2, nose over toe, ball. And like I said, something about those Alabama University guys, I don't know what it is, but they're exceptional. So here's our top 45. Just like before, real important, limit change in height. We're pushing the ground away to drive out of this route because it is a race from break point to catch point. You'll notice some of these guys start to use that rotation of this foot. They'll kind of pivot and set up this break point in their top 45s. Now, curls comebacks are difficult routes to run. And if I personally believe if you could run a curl or comeback efficiently, you could run any route on the tree. So we pay high attention to detail to these two routes. And as we mentioned before, there are 3 to 4 other stations of this setup. So they're getting 4 reps every total rep. We want to clean up these arms a little bit. He has a habit of doing like a Michael Jackson Thriller, which he actually has really improved that, where his arms kind of just go out like he's doing the Thriller dance, which is kind of funny, but we've kind of cleaned him up. And this is this young man's first session, and you'll notice that he just stands right up. And that's kind of something we want to avoid because, you know, on cones, when we're not really full speed, we can get away with things. The velocity of our movement is much, it's diminished. So I can do things at this speed that if I try them at full speed, it's not going to be very efficient, for lack of a better word. It's going to look sloppy. We're going to round stuff, and there's going to be a clean example of that in a second. And last one here, and then we'll move on. Okay, so this is my favorite drill. Coach Dub, the receivers coach, who's at Nebraska for a few years. If anybody follows receivers, I'm sure you know who he is. Works with Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, a bunch of really good guys. He's been doing stuff like this for a long time, and that's where I got it from. And I think it's an exceptional drill. A lot of reps without really beating up the joints. Curls and comebacks are violent. They're violent routes to run. You can't really get 15 curls and comebacks each side, and you're done. You'd be done for the day, essentially, because of the volume of the intense route. So we set up cones 2.5, 2.5, 3, 3, 4, 5. And we treat each cone like it is a break point or top of a route. So we are working our foot cadence at each cone. Finally, we hit these cones right here, and it is a shortened 45, okay? So we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 routes, quote unquote routes in on one rep. Guys will go 2 to 3 times each side. They're getting tons and tons of reps in without really getting reps in. Their legs are fresh, ready to go. So we're working our cadence at each cone, and then we're working the snap down at the top. This is a low tempo drill. Trying to get guys a ball at all times. It's a really nice rep here. I want to rewind that. As far as how they enter into the break, freedom of movement. Kind of explore it, whatever you need to do to be efficient, okay? You see them kind of skip into it. No problem with it. Smooth break. Now, this is what I was referring to before about this is a 5-yard break. You're not at the same velocity. You're not close to max velocity or closer. You're closer to max velocity when you're into a 15-yard comeback or a 12-yard curl than you are right here. So this young man is able to just stick one foot in the ground and run back downhill. Out of all the human beings that I've seen run routes, and I'm sure some coaches have seen more than me, being I'm not the oldest of folk. I'm not a young pup anymore, but I'm not the oldest. I've probably only seen one guy actually stick one foot in the ground and get out, and it was probably Chad Johnson, and he's a unicorn. So this is what I mean by we got to treat each cone like a route. It comes with experience and repetition. Not to do things because if I'm getting out of breaks here different than how I'm getting out of breaks in my full route, then this is null and void. It's almost, you might as well not even do it. It's got to be able to transfer over. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. You're just doing it to do it. So you'll see what I mean by that. He kind of just sticks one foot in the ground and just gets out. Full speed, 15-yard comeback, that's not happening. If it did, he'd probably be able to play wherever he wants. And then our progression from here, so that was weight drop to short 45s, short weight drop to 45s. This is long to 45s, okay? So now what we do is we just pick up a couple cones, space out these drops a little bit more. So now they're picking up more velocity as they hit their top of their route or their weight drop, okay? I give them a little bit more freedom in their foot cadence here. It's really more about just get down. Just get your hips down, get your nose over, arms mirror legs, and let's play ball. Be an athlete, be you, okay? Some guys, the older guys will work that snap down. The more experienced guys will work that snap down. But a guy who's on his second session, he's just going. Like, go ahead, get your hips down, get your nose over, explore your movement, be comfortable, okay? There is over coaching, and we try to avoid it. It's, that's the art of coaching. What is too much feedback? What is enough feedback? What are the right cues? What are the wrong cues? And that just comes with experience. And I'm learning every day because I haven't been coaching very long. So it's always a learning process. But here's the drill. Similar, it's same setup pretty much, just a little bit more spaced out and less cuts because they're more violent. They're able to reset in between whatever they need to be comfortable and get a quality rep in. Vert, 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 snap, get out. Try to provide them with multiple angles. Vert, 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 snap, get out. Those last two kids are sophomores in high school. This kid plays at Villanova. Don't have enough good words to say about him. High attention to detail. Now I'm going to freeze him up, though. And you're going to notice something that we speak about, and it's minor. It's minor. It's not, some people might not have a problem with it, but, we're trying to eliminate everything. We're trying to make everything look the same. He's going to chop his stride right here to set up his snap down. Now, this is where the cones become a curse almost. I believe he chops up to meet the needs of the cones, but we spoke about it and we cleaned it up. But we want to try and avoid that. But even with that, I mean, he is so violent with his snap down. He gets in and out. And I mean, that's a textbook rep. It's really nice having him at our sessions because he really sets the example. So here we have our full reps now, full 45. So we have this line working curls, this line working comebacks, and it's alternated. And we just try and get as many reps in as we can. I think this day we were hitting 3 each side. So here's that thing we were talking about previously about that pivot or rotation into our break point. But the problem I have with this one is he's starting to lean early. Otherwise, the foot cadence is great. I like how he sets his drive foot up to drive out of his route. But I think we could stay square a bit longer just to keep that vertical threat for the DB. Because the minute we start leaning, indicator, he's going to drive. We give him a head start on our race from break point to catch point. Super important, this kid's on here. 2 months ago, he was playing center, okay? Never ran a route in his entire life. He's going to play H-back at a D3 school. Great kid, hard worker, all Long Island center. Running curls and comebacks. Like, center running curls and comebacks. Like, and pretty damn good at it. As we spoke about before, we've just been working foot cadence primarily with him because he's in that cognitive stage. We don't want to overload him. So, and he does a nice job with his foot cadence. You'll see his arms die, but we're going to clean him up. But he gets out in 4. His eyes are down. That's another thing we're going to address, but we're working foot cadence and he does a nice job of it. And he takes a picture with the ball when he catches it. Does a nice job. So here we're going to talk about rising up prior to finishing our break. Now you're going to watch him right here come up as he tries to drive this way. He's putting force this way, trying to drive his weight this way, and he's rising. It's going to be an abrupt rise, okay? This is going to be difficult for him to drive downhill out, and you see him round this step here before he works back downhill, okay? We want to try and I often say stay in there, meaning whatever height you enter at, you kind of want to leave at. Okay. If we start rising up before we drive out of our break, now naturally it's going to happen a little bit, but we don't want that abrupt change in height. And here's an exceptional rep. Does a nice job snapping down and racing out of his route. Racing out of his route from break point to catch point. He enters square and rotates out. Now here's another example of rising and before he drives out. And I'm more excited about it because I know it was close to being a great route. One thing I'm showing here is I'm not playing DB. I'm simulating DB, giving them that near hip to chase, getting that blind spot before they snap down. And you're going to watch him just abruptly kind of rise up before he drives out. It causes him to take 2 extra steps. It happens. So here is the rep I was referring to with the eyes to the football. It's also a great snap down. It's a great 45, great curl. But I just want to hammer down the attention to detail from this kid. Does an absolute great job just locking on to the football. He actually runs 5 yards and he doesn't even take his eyes off it. Snap 1, 2, locks on. Now, when that ball is over your head, a lot of times the ball will be up here and we're still looking through the quarterback. You might as well, if that's how you're going to catch balls, you might as well go in a room, turn the lights off, make it pitch black, and have, your buddy throw footballs at you because you can't see the ball anyway, and you can't catch what you can't see. So when that thing's over our head, it's low, it's whatever, especially over our head, our chin has to snap back with it. And it's exactly what he does here. Rather than his eyes staying forward, his chin is snapped back, his eyes are on the ball, he's locked on, okay? Nose, string the football. Wherever that thing goes, we're going with it. We have to see the ball. You cannot catch what you can't see. This is an excellent, excellent example. And he takes it with him. He doesn't even, he's so, oh, it's mine. You're not taking it. It's my ball. Great, great rep. And here are just some NFL examples of it. Here's Devontae Adams. Snap, 1, 2. He leaves his break early, but he stays square. He enters square, okay? Now, some offenses, they want you really actively running back to the ball. Sometimes they don't. That varies within scheme, so we won't put much into that. Here's a comeback. Amari Cooper, another Alabama guy, just violent, just The whole world stops when he sticks his foot in the ground. This is a race, though, okay? Corner does a nice job. Corner does a really nice job. He's beat, but he is out. He's coming. If this receiver kind of just hangs out, is lazy working back to it, he's going to make a play on the ball. But Coop races out of it. Does a really nice job. This is a textbook rep. Snap, get out.
Coach, question for you.
Yes, sir.
The aspect of racing out of the break, will you specifically isolate that aspect and work on it? And what do you like to do for that?
I like to hammer it down in the top 45s and the weight drop to 45s. So a good way to do that is just extend the amount of cones that you put there so they know they have to run through it. I've seen guys use like long jump ropes and they have to finish running through the catch. It is something that it has to be hammered down because guys want to, it's tough to run through the catch. It's difficult, but it's super important because let's take a look at this rep and let's dive into it. Now let's say this corner is even with him and Tyreek Hill is kind of lazy coming out. He could beat him to the spot because we technically should always have a head start. We should always have a head start because we know where we're going and usually there's cushion at the break point, okay? But if we kind of BS this coming out, it's fair game now. Now we're giving him a chance to make a play on it. So the way I like to really hammer it down is just on those top 45s and on those weight drop to 45s, I like to really hammer it. And with external cueing by just putting cones down. rather than hammering it with full speed routes. Because if you try to correct somebody at full speed, it's like teaching a kid a full algebra problem the first day of math class. Like, motor learning seldomly occurs when somebody's working a full speed task. It's usually broken down into its basal constituents, and we kind of break it down and assess from there. So I like to do it in the drill work and let it transfer to the full work. Does that make sense? Does that answer Coach's question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great question. So here's an example of the weight drop 45, but not a curl comeback. He's running a chair or a out and up stop, but he's still sinking his hips. And when Tyreek Hill runs at you, you're running away. So it's a really good job. And then hold up, the best comeback weight drop of all time. And if you're a receiver, you've probably seen it because it was all over Twitter, all over Instagram. But oh my goodness, Richie James, camp at the 49ers. Just enjoy it. Just a great rep. And, it would be negligent to expect Jimmy and Johnny in 8th grade to duplicate that. But, it's a parameter, a structure, a goal that we can kind of hit similar biomechanics and positions that he's in. Not exact, but similar. So now we're going to dive into speed cuts. So speed cuts, we don't teach it like a route, okay? It's a cut. So it can be used on dig, square outs, routes of that nature, but it's just a technique used to win at the top. So we use speed cuts when there's cushion at our break point. How much cushion is variable. But when there's cushion at the top of our break, of our route, we don't want to break down and give him a time to break on that route. We kind of just want to roll off that foot and get that chin to shoulder and get out of our break. Super important. Just like before, there's absolutely no indicators. We're running this because there's cushion, which means there's no reason this thing is broken up. The only way this route gets broken up is we tell this guy what we're running. We change our stride. We BS off the line. We don't threaten him vertical. We look where we're going. If we look right through this guy all the way through break point and just roll off that inside or outside foot, there's no chance he has to cover it. Ball's on time. He's late. Okay. So we will work submaximal to quicks. So submaximal routes, quick speed cuts to quick outs, both using the speed cut. We will work a loop drill, and we will work full deep outs. Cones with speed cuts, they get a little dicey because this one you really cannot chop your stride up. It's got to be everything vertical. Guys will reach for cones. Overstriding can cause major issues with speed cuts. So we're going to dive into some of the drill work here. So you do see cones here. For the younger guys, I don't even want them full striding. I kind of want them like almost jogging and just working on that sensation of no change in stride. I'm not reaching for these cones. I'm not reaching for my depth. Wherever my right foot hits, I just kind of roll off of it. It's tough to see here, but there is a vertical displacement and a horizontal displacement through the cones. The difference between a square cut, which is why we can't single step a square cut, is because you are literally breaking at 90 degrees. So to be running full speed this way and then break this way is extremely difficult to do on one step. And I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do it. The analogy I like to use for the speed cut is you're steering a bike. So you have bike handles. Okay, I'm not going to draw a picture because I'm a terrible artist. You have bike handles, but you can look at me. When I turn my bike handles, I can't brake flat at 90 degrees, at least any of the bikes I've ever driven. But what I can do is I will round into it. It's no different here. You are going to gain some depth here out of your brake, but you're going to finish flat. You're going to finish as if it were a 90-degree brake. We're able to gain some depth here because it's a quicker brake. It's a one step. We're rolling over. We should spend little time on the ground. And we have cushion at the break point. There's separation at the break point, which allows us to take that extra time. So the older guys here, they'll kind of just run 2 straight quick outs. They won't really treat the cones as a developmental drill. He does a nice job at sophomore in high school. He kind of slows it down, just works on not changing that stride. So we're getting 2 reps here for every one. There's a ball coming out over here. And this is 2-sided. So you come through this set and you walk right into the next set. So there are just reps, 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 reps. Some of these guys, it's their first session. I'm letting them explore it. I'll give them 1 or 2 cues. So our next progression here is a loop drill where we kind of just get two reps for one. And we do a good job getting our eyes and chin out immediately. So I like to tell these guys to get that chin glued to the shoulder immediately after we roll off this foot, okay? This is not only gonna pull us flat, it's not only gonna get us to see the ball coming out of the quarterback's hand, but it's gonna pull us flat and friendly to the quarterback. So I like to say finish negative. So for example, if I finish my speed cut here, I'm really continuing downhill here. Negative to the quarterback, shortens the distance of the throw, eliminates undercut, and maintains the separation that we've created. Super important on a drill like this that these guys, I try to avoid doing drills like this with the younger guys because they're going to be shortening strides, chopping up, leaning. This is definitely a more advanced drill because they kind of have to neglect the cones. They're just landmarks. If your right foot hits here, like just take an extra stride or two to roll off of it. And this kid does a good job of it. Kind of just neglects them. They're just landmarks, okay? Chin to shoulder, pulls them flat. Really nice rep. And here are just some examples. So this is a throwback. Our boy Keyshawn Johnson. He was in short in motion from the wide receiver spot here, and he just runs straight through his man. Runs straight through his man. No change in height, no change in stride. DB has no idea what he's running. He rolls off that left foot over. Now he could pull a little bit more flat and negative, but there's just so much. There's so much cushion at the break point here. We're gonna call this 5 yards of cushion. If you add 5 yards of separation, so if you ask any quarterback or OC if they take 5 yards of separation on a route, I think they would answer yes before you could finish your question. Which goes into the mentality of running this route. When we go back here and I see so much cushion, my mindset is not create. I'm not creating separation. He's created it for me. The defensive scheme has created it for me. His alignment, we win by alignment. As long as I don't lean, I don't chop, I don't shorten my strides, he doesn't have a chance. The only guy that has a chance is this who may be playing in the flat, but he does not have a chance. So all we have to do is maintain this cushion, okay? At the top, there's 5 yards. Maintain it, and it's a reception. He's late, and Keyshawn doesn't even pull flat very well, and the DB's still late. Darryl Jackson, this is from the Super Bowl. Sorry, Seahawks fans, a rough one. Same thing, vertical, vertical, vertical. He's at about 9. We'll say there's 8 yards of separation. Just runs through him, leaves him. There's nothing he can do. Vert, vert, vert. Now, something I want to bring up, you'll see a lot of guys. Now, this is a good job, similar to the top 90s we were talking about. Guys will kind of put a lot of juice into this. They'll kind of get outside their framework a lot. We want to spend as little time on the ground on this speed cut as possible. It should feel effortless. It should feel smooth. The further outside our framework we get, the longer we're going to spend on the ground because it's harder to absorb and produce force outside here than it is underneath our hip with our joint stack. Now, we're not going to be here every time, but we want to be closer to here than we are here, okay? When we place that foot for the speed cut. And Jackson does a nice job. Rolls right off it, chin to shoulder, pulls flat. Easy pitch and catch. And here we are running full deep outs. Nice job. I don't even know if we need to give that with the head, right? We're just running through him, but he does a nice job rolling off that foot. Slight lean before the break. You'll see it again. Let's run that back. Oh, sorry. Slight lean before the break and just a little bit wider than he needs to be.
Coach, got a couple questions for you.
Yeah, please.
There's a question on how you teach the slot fade.
Slot fade. Okay, so slot fade, I like to, depending on where the cover defender is, if he's playing short catch, we'll say anywhere within 7, we want to get on his toes and kind of hit him with some type of, similar to a rocker step. We're going to get into jabs actually at the end of this presentation. I know I'm going long right now. We're going to talk about jabs at the end of this presentation. I'll kind of go through the slant and the jabs quick because we're coming to the end of the speed cut. But get on his toes, and we just need to do something to freeze him. Okay, we don't need to necessarily have him jump inside, but we need to freeze him. Okay, that could be a hesitation. That could be playing with tempo, attacking fast, slowing tempo, and then bursting again. But something to freeze him, pull him inside. I like to use some type of rocker. The one issue I have with people that when they use that box fade or inside fade is they'll get width prior to or as they're attacking the DB's toes. Now, if he's outside leverage, that's fine. But if he's head up and inside, just leave him there. Just go get him there and then expand. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I think we're good, Coach. There's another question here too. Do you mind the toe drag?
Oh, man. So this is one that you got to pick your battles with, man. Like, so, all right, it kind of goes back to how much is it slowing the receiver down, and is there a risk for injury? Usain Bolt has a shorter stride on one side than he does the other. But if you fix Usain Bolt, he might not be Usain Bolt, right? So similar concept here. Obviously, we're not dealing with Usain Bolt, but will the adjustment of cleaning up the speed cut, the toe drag, negatively impact the route runner? If the answer is yes, and there's no risk of injury, we might leave it. However, conceptually, dragging your toe is just, it's friction. Friction is resistance. Resistance is slow, right? So I tell my guys all the time, are you slower with the resistance sled running? Or are you faster with the resistance sled? Or are you faster running body weight? Every one of them answers, I'm faster running body weight. So why am I adding resistance to my speed cut? Something I have recognized is, and I could be wrong, like this is just a theory, guys tend to drag that toe when they overextend on that plant foot on their speed cut. When they overextend on that plant foot, they're unable to efficiently absorb the force to roll out of their break. Okay, they're out in front. It's difficult to absorb force. You're not underneath your center of gravity. So they're coping, the way they manage that force absorption to absorb, they'll drag their toe to slow themselves down. It's easier to absorb force at a slower velocity, okay? So one way we've been able to get some guys out of that toe drag, and they felt great, simply by just keeping them cognizant of where they strike that foot. When they don't reach as much, the toe drag goes away, and it's kind of a lot smoother. Guys have been injured dragging their toe. It's extreme plantar flexion. We're not meant to be dragging our toe for 3 yards. It's a lot of stress on the joints that plantar flex. You're overstretching them. So it's something to be cognizant of. Does that answer your question?
I think we're good, Coach.
Okay. I'm gonna breeze through these speed cuts because we got to move on. So let's just take a look at an NFL example here. Here's Kenny Stills. He's deep out. He does spray. So spray, we're not going to get into in this session. You're attacking leverage. Outside leverage, I'm attacking his outside shoulder to put myself between the ball and the man. Cushion at the top. He leans a little early, but there's 4 yards of cushion. I mean, he rolls this thing over, and he does a nice job finishing negative. There's not much he can do, and his foot does strike underneath the center of gravity. Effortless. It should look effortless. Real quick, I'm eating up a lot of time. talking about some issues with the speed cut really, really quick. When we start leaning early or rolling early, he is going the other way. That is an indicator. Pick six every time, okay? You're going to see real quick, he starts rolling off his outside foot, but we are to roll off our inside foot here. What that does, he gets a head start. You're going to notice him start his break point the minute he rolls on this foot. He's out of his break before we're out of ours, and that's a problem. That's a problem. He's driving out. I'm not even out of my break point yet, okay?
There was a question, Coach, if you work speed cut with your digs.
Okay, great question. So, yeah, we will work them. Just from speaking to the guys, most of their speed cuts are on outbreakers. It seems like most of their offensive coordinators, that from the experiences that we've had, most of their digs are square cuts. Just from speaking to people, the two reasons for that have been a little bit harder to get under control over the middle coming out of a speed cut, and some coaches want that indicator for the quarterback to be able to drive that route. Once the hip sink, it's coming out. So those are two things that I've heard. Now we will speed cut digs. The speed cut is a tool used at the top of a route. If there's cushion, technically the way we teach it, you could speed cut it, because if we break down, it's going to take longer to get out. The only reason we need to break down is if it's scheme based or we need to do something extra to create separation. Slants versus off. So this will be a quick one. Similar to the speed cut, should never be covered. If we have off coverage, we're running a slant. This is completed 100% of the time on our end. Obviously, human error comes into play, but less is more. 3 full strides. The angle of departure varies by scheme. Okay, we want to just push vertical up until that third step, which is it varies. Some teams run 5-step. Some teams will have their outside foot up and run 2-step. If we freeze it until that third step hits the ground, we should not know what route you're running. So we're vertical, eye through, leave them. Vertical, leave them. Now you'll notice we get a little wide here unnecessarily because we're just maintaining the separation. Spends a little bit too much time on the ground. I'm talking a tiny bit. And he has a little bit of a hard time getting out of it. And here's our center, running 3-step slants like a champ. Okay. Good example of vertical and tilt, right? So here's Michael Thomas. Now he's kind of low cover defender, but he bails. So we treat him like there's cushion at the top. Okay, here's his second stride right here. Joint angle. Remember it. Third stride. Not much has changed. Maybe slight shoulder lean, but there's not much changing with his lower body mechanics. Maybe there's a little bit more knee flexion, okay? Not much of a change, though. This is what we mean by it should look exactly the same. It should look exactly the same as any route you're running. There should be no indicator by changing our stride, changing our height, and he just leaves them. Does a nice job finishing flat. Another slant versus off. Stevie Johnson, way ahead of his time as a route runner. All right, slant versus head up or inside press. Diamond release. So must threaten vertical. We got to get that hip flip to turn and run with the vertical. The cover defender's alignment determines how we approach this route. The cover defender's reaction to our vertical threat depends on how we approach this route. And we got to prepare for combat at the top. So here's the first drill we use to work it. No defender, just working the angle here to open them up and break flat. Freedom of movement at the line of scrimmage right now. We're just working the diamond. Ideally, we wouldn't like guys hopping up and down. So here we stop this receiver because his strides are extremely choppy. If I'm a DB, I am not opening up with this, right? Not threatened. He's a yard over the line of scrimmage, okay? We'll take a look at one more here. Oh, sorry. Oops. I apologize, guys. Macs are difficult. All right, so now we are working with combat. So these are the 2 drills we'll do for diamonds. We're going to do the same thing. We're opening up vertical 3 stride. Number of strides is going to vary based on how quick this hip flips. Full strides, throw by. Full stride, throw by. Quick note, ideally we want to avoid this swim over the top. We want to rip through like Dan does here. And just some examples of a diamond. Once we get him here, it's over. It's over. It's the whole route. It's the entire route. Once we get that hip flip to turn around with the vertical, it's over. And that's super important. You got to threaten them vertically. You got to open them up. The amount of steps coming out of this diamond is really determined on where the foot hits when you make that decision that it's time to go, and the angle of departure. If I'm breaking flat here, I'm probably not going to be able to snap off one foot. If I'm breaking here, I'm probably going to be able to get off one foot. Another example of a diamond. Snap. Done. Opens them, eats up space, opens them, and snaps it. Yes, coach?
I believe you kind of you covered it, but coach wants to know, what are the coaching points for cornerbacks that motor or mirror and don't open up within 4 or 5 yards?
You gotta be patient. You gotta heat him up. I apologize. You gotta heat him up. So what is his alignment? That's the question. If he's on the line and he's patient, we're going. I'm taking a speed release. We're going now. I want him to be. He's got to go. He's got to be urgent. Okay. If we play patient with him, if he's patient, then it's going to take forever. But I want to eat up space as fast as possible and get him going. If he's off, if he's playing like catch at 3 or 4, the diamond, we can't really use it. We can't really use it because he's going to be we're going to have to go through him to cut underneath. That's where we kind of want to eat up space, and we're going to get into it and hit him with some type of jab crossover. Okay, that to create the separation. And we'll get into it. That's a great question, though. That is a great question. I hope I answered it well enough. I'm rushing a little bit because I got a lot of stuff, a little bit more to go over.
Yeah, Coach, you got about 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome. So that actually might time out really well. It's not if I keep hitting finder, though. All right. So we got the diamond. All right, so here we go. Here's the last thing we're going to discuss is our jabs and our crossover. Just winning with our feet, okay? We'll do hand fights too. We'll go over that, but we're just going to discuss winning with our feet. So we got to identify the DB's alignment. Where's his leverage? How far off the line is he? Because that's really going to determine how much space we eat up in our jabs, in our move, in our ability to create separation. It's a violent shift of weight from hip to hip. Okay, we're pushing off our insteps. We're shifting our weight from hip to hip. You hear it all the time about that basketball crossover. It's very similar. Our foot, hip, shoulder, and head are all moving together. If I just pick my foot up and put it down, nobody's threatened. I got to move my hip with it. And we're patient and sudden. We're playing around with tempos. So here's an example, Michael Thomas, of it at the top of the route, okay? Could be line of scrimmage or top of the route. Here he is at the top, shifting his weight. And here it is at the line of scrimmage with Allen Robinson. Shifting his weight, double jab. So first drill we'll do for this, single jabs in the ladder. Like the ladder because you can see this black line on the ladder. The hip starts out of it. For each jab, it enters it. So we're getting that hip movement. Hip starts out, enter. Out, enter. So we're moving that hip with the jab. Those are our singles. Then we'll move to moving jabs. So right out of the ladder, we'll set this up like it's a circuit almost. We're hitting jabs on the move. What we do between the cones is irrelevant. We're just working that violent, sudden jab. Next progression is a standing double, line of scrimmage double. These are all in a row. Pushing off his insteps, foot, hip, shoulder, head. Right into a triple. And then on their way back down the hash, they are working running doubles. So this is something similar to what the question was about if you have a patient defender at like 5 or whatever, he's being patient, he's playing catch. This is something we are going to use to move him. It's that violent hip shifter crossover. And then we'll put it all together. So this is just an example of with an external cue. I'm his defender, he's moving me, okay? They're moving me. And they do a nice job. And then we'll just put it together with what we call a stretch or a shuffle release into some jabs. So now I'm attacking this DB, and I got to move him. Ideally, we'd like to work a double, 1, 2, or a triple, 1, 2, 3, back in. And this is the last slide of the day. And they have freedom of movement at the line of scrimmage. And as we mentioned previously, the amount of space vertically that we eat up, the vertical displacement, is based on where this DB is. If he's at 5, we can eat up a little bit more space. If he's at 3, we probably don't want to get on him that quick because he's going to yoke us up. So we're just going to address that and adjust that based on his alignment. Most of these kids are 9th and 10th graders. So, I mean, everyone can do this stuff. It's in the methods of teaching it, and anybody could do it. This is a harder thing to teach, though, because I guess it's a little bit less natural. So that's pretty much how we teach a lot of things. Obviously, that's just a few routes. I tried to pick the ones that are most commonly run. But yeah, that's it. I hope I was able to answer a lot of questions, and if there are any more, let's, if we have time.
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions for Coach, feel free to drop them in there. Get a few more before. And shoot, like we were talking before, man, we can literally talk about this all day.
Hours, man.
And that's the great thing. But we'll certainly we'll talk as this, but we'll certainly work on getting you back on next week. Cover a different topic if you want.
For sure.
So it's super.
I see a question.
Yeah. Have you seen more and more people running inside, turning comebacks? What are your thoughts?
I'm having a hard time. To me, an inside turning comeback is a curl. It might just be a varied stem.
I think he's referring to turning inside and then fading back out, kind of like that reverse
turn out, like
reverse, yeah, that like reverse pivot.
Okay, so that's an easier break. That's an easier break in my opinion, because it's less violent and it's less downhill. Like we teach that almost like a drop pop, almost like a hitch, where you're dropping off that inside and kind of pivoting on that outside, and then you could turn it into a race. It's usually more timing where the ball should be on you, similar to a back shoulder, at least as far as that I have run it and been taught it. But the way we teach that is same concept. We want to attack that blind spot, chase that near hip, and we don't need to be as violent in our drop because it's less violent of a break. Does that make sense? Awesome. Same thing with posts and corners. Yeah, we'll do similar stuff. I just couldn't fit everything on in this one. I was thinking about throwing it on. I'm glad I didn't because we went a long time. But we'll do similar stuff with posts and corners. We've been experimenting with some drills for rocker steps, which have been really, really helpful. And posts and corners, man, like we work that pressure step, and then we kind of just give them tools. We kind of give them tools to win versus each coverage. And in our training, we'll present them different coverage contour and have them assess and make an educated decision on what tool to use. That way they're able to make that decision in a game. And we'll work those drills as well. Yeah, rocker steps, absolutely, man. Like I can't, if you can rock, like we have a couple big tight ends that have been rocker stepping, and I feel bad for some squat safeties and some backers that got to cover that. I mean, that's tough stuff.
Coach, I know you showed it in the beginning, but how can they connect with you on whether social media, or how can they contact you if they have any questions?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter. Coach G has tagged me in it. If
A
you want
bunch
to
of
shoot me a
times.
with yeah, like 1,000 times. If you want to just shoot me a message on there, um, I could talk receiver play for forever. Like my girlfriend will be like, get off the phone, like, cause I'll just fall down a rabbit hole and like just be talking. So if you want to call, like, get my number over Twitter, DM me. Let's talk, man. I love ball. I like learning. I'm a baby, man. Like I don't know any. I treat it like I don't know anything. Like I think there's something that somebody can learn from anybody, and I wholeheartedly believe that. So I would love to talk ball with you guys, and I can't express how appreciative I am for you guys listening to me talk about football. And I mean, this is Coach G. This is a great job. I mean,
Appreciate it.
it's invaluable, truly, because not only is the information great, but in a time that things are kind of rough, people are coming together and we're having a good time and we're learning, and everything is really, it's been exceptional. And I don't even know if you knew how great it was going to be, but I can't express to you how awesome this stuff is, man. It is unbelievable, and you're doing an unbelievable job.
Appreciate it, man. And honestly, it's you know, it's just me, you know, obviously just we're setting it up, but dang, I mean, if it wasn't for, you know, great presenters like yourself and the tremendous coaches that taking the time out to tune in, man, that's what it's about. But yeah, Coach kind of nailed it. It's a very unique time, obviously, for us all. But the thing about it is every single person, no matter where you're at in the country, man, is going through it. So, like, it's something that we're going through together. So during that time, man, you know, we'll use this time to lean on each other and learn and grow. I know if you guys have tuned in, you've heard me say it a million times, but something I truly believe is just the fact that, like, you know, we got to be that much better for when we get back to coaching. I know we're all feeling deprived, want to be out in that field, want to be in the weight room, doing this, doing that. But, you know, obviously we can't. So let's optimize our time the best as possible. And it's by doing stuff like this, you know. So we appreciate Coach Vannucci for taking time out of his morning, man, to talk some ball. You know, obviously you see the kids he has out there, man. He's a busy dude. He's got a ton of sessions, ton of really great kids that he works with on a weekly basis, man. And it's, you know, we're appreciative that he took the time out to join us, man. So thank you.
I really appreciate you guys. I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and this is awesome, man. I can't help but smile because it's, you know, it's crazy how football brings everybody together, right? Like, it's great. It's great. It's truly people don't understand how powerful sports are and football is until stuff like this happens. So
100%. No, that's a great point. If y'all want, you know, drop your Twitter handles, all right, in the chat so we can all follow each other, right? And we can all stay connected. I think that's one of the most important things. So I'll leave this up, you know, for a bit so you guys can take advantage of that. Because, you know, you know, we have one guy speaking up here, but you know what? I mean, right now there's currently 32 people in there, and then there's a ton of knowledge. I know it. So we can all grow and learn from each other, man. So let's make sure we do that. Okay. So, you know, once again, just like the other sessions, you know, this one's filmed. So I'm going to work to get some stuff out. You just got to bear with me. It's a little busy right now, but I'll certainly do my best to get that out to you if you want. And, you know, once again, we'll get Mike back on next week to talk another topic, man, because he was tremendous. Obviously he's got a lot of insight on the position and you know, does a great job out there. So. And he's a Long Island guy.
I'm a Long Island guy. There's something about the water down here too. Man. Same water as the Alabama water.
Gotta take care of my own.
I would also like to maybe do a shorter presentation next time, and have guys come in with questions.
Yeah,
I have so many cut-ups. I mean, I'm just gonna show you real quick. I have so many cut-ups on my computer that, like, if you guys have questions. Well, I'm not gonna show you because I don't want to go through the screen thing. But if you guys got questions, I could probably get to them immediately, and just show film on it right away. So
yeah, let's do
I
that.
would love the Q&A because then it almost becomes a forum rather than one person speaking.
Yeah,
which would be awesome, and I think that's really important for growth. Is just different criticisms and you know, just people sharing ideas.
Well, for sure. And the thing is, honestly, guys, what I certainly encourage with every session, you know, ask questions. You know what I mean? Like as the coach is presenting, man, ask any question. You know, I think sometimes maybe people are a little reserved, but, take the time and ask questions. The coaches have, about an hour and some change to get their stuff in. And once again, if we don't get to everything, everyone's great about staying connected and following up. So, but the more questions, the better. We want to really just help each other. So let's continue to do that. Coach Schultz, the next one is at 11:30 a.m. So got a little time, get some breakfast in, and get some beef stew like Coach Gant. So whatever you got to do, man. So it's good. It's good. We're going to continue to push this forward. I posted the link. On my